I did not set out that night to take photographs of UFOs.
We have clearly two different objects shown in this no-fly zone.
Here we have Wilbur Allen suddenly photographing objects, and investigators in the field suddenly harken back to the 1952 sightings.
If 10 guys or a dozen guys in the aviation industry tell you that they saw something that's round and sitting there and then took off straight up and cut a hole in the clouds, I'm excited about that. That's important.
I can still visualize that shape as being something that you didn't normally see. We just figured it was a UFO.
We were here doing an album cover, and one of the things they wanted for the album cover was the Capitol Dome. The photograph was actually the artist here with the dome of the Capitol behind him. Behind the artist was something that he saw that disturbed him, which we could classify as a UFO. It was moving towards this bank of the reflection pool. We went to the van for a few minutes, and in the van I got the notion to jump out with my camera and set up the tripod in Lower Senate Park and take the last photograph of the evening. As I set up the camera, I noticed a stationary formation of objects above my head, and I took a 3.5-minute photograph of it.
By a lot of measures, Wilbur Allen is one of the best people you could possibly pick to have a UFO encounter. He used to work on Air Force One, which means he would have had to have been cleared. He would have had to have an extensive background check. Number two, he's an expert in photography.
It would have to be, I would say, 4 or 5 miles out that direction. The anomalies resembled closely the anomalies that formed over the U.S. Capitol Dome July 26, 1952. They looked exactly the same.
The summer of '52 was just a very big time for UFO sightings. It was all over the Washington, D.C. area and all over a lot of other places. The big press conference was in July, biggest press conference since the end of World War II, with General Sanford explaining away UFOs and General Ramey there. Of course, I've been focused a lot on the Operation Majestic 12 documents. And it says on one of the pages there that the government was quite concerned that things had picked up starting in late May of '52. You know, what's going on? What is this leading up to?
Well, there have been a number of radar visual UFO events in the almost 60 years now of the modern UFO era. I don't think there has been one on 2 consecutive weekends like this where we had such an interplay of both radar sightings and visual sightings. Here we have a number of events, a multiplicity of events from one night to the next, the 19th and 20th of July of '52, and then the very next weekend, a slightly different series of events, but the same kind of things, apparently maneuvering objects seen and tracked on radar for hours. There's enough time to scramble aircraft, there's enough time to get guys out on the ground looking up at the sky with binoculars, which they did.
Well, we also have a statement from General Ramey, same guy concerned with Roswell. Now he wasn't in Fort Worth, he was in Washington, saying that we had scrambled jets hundreds of times. Equally distressing, for want of a better phrase, there were over 200 accounts of airplanes, military airplanes crashing. Over 200. Going down like flies. And words like disintegrated and disappeared were used. As a matter of fact, the head of the American Rocket Society, Mr. Farnsworth, wrote a letter to President Truman that summer saying he didn't think that ordering pilots to shoot down UFOs was a very good idea. So there's a whole dark side.
The newspaper report said it was 50 years ago. I think it was the Washington Post. I was the chief of the Washington National Control Tower, and I had 3 other people Mary and Miles Reynolds, who have passed away, and Joe Zacco, who lives in Florida and is still flying. We got on duty and everything was normal. One would take off, then you'd wait a while, then another would take off. And then this Capital Airlines took off to the northwest, piloted by a man by the name of Casey Pierman. And all of a sudden, something that's circling his airplane, and then it went up and down. And we saw it on radar, and the people downstairs saw it on radar, and we saw it out the window. We knew right away that it was not an aircraft. Pierman wanted to know what it was, and we said it's a UFO. The next night, the same thing happened. Something showed up and circled around and went up and down, but we did not report it because the first time they laughed at us, and I'm not going to let them laugh at me again, so I kept it to myself.
People want it both ways. If we can identify what a person saw as something relatively conventional, then we trust witness testimony. If we can't, you can't trust witness testimony. The laughter curtain has been very successful.
I can still visualize that shape as being something that you didn't normally see. It was round and curved on top. We just figured it was a UFO.
That's not just anecdotal if you got a guy looking at a radar screen or a physical trace case. That's the real world, folks.
Status on your location. Number 2 is in position, standing by.
We're going to meet up with Wilbur Allen, and we're going to find out if there's an easy explanation for some of these things. If it was a street light or a car light or some sort of beacon on top of the building. We're going to go step by step where every light was, what couldn't have been, what shouldn't have been, and what's still unexplained.